Good morning everyone, welcome to another episode of the Ismono Commute, the series in which I basically utilize the wasted time in my car when I'm commuting to work or like now to the gym. And in this series I discuss or review movies, series and other stuff, and opposed to the content on my main channel where I review bags, etc. and other travel items. In this series I do not edit the videos, but I rather just talk to you while I'm driving to work. And very importantly, do not text and drive and don't get distracted by your phone. I intentionally use an action camera without the screen so I won't get distracted from traffic. So always drive safe and don't use your phone on or while you are driving. And in this episode, I want to discuss the last Mission Impossible film, Dead Reckoning. I'm a huge Mission Impossible fan. As a matter of fact, or not as a matter of fact, actually, I did like Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3, but I have never been that much of a huge fan. But then there came 4, 5, 6, and I don't know which number Dead Reckoning actually is. But yeah, after those iterations, I became more and more a fan of that series. Obviously, you can argue, and that is something that my wife and I always talk about, because you could argue, oh, I don't like Tom Cruise, I don't want to, support him. I feel you can I kind of want to detach the artist from the art, and I highly respect Tom Cruise for doing all of these stunts that are shown in all of these Mission Impossible films that are clearly not CGI. They are always real. He always goes through these stunts and does them himself, and I highly respect him for that. And you can clearly feel and obviously see the realism in the movies, in the action scenes of the movies that he makes. Be it in Top Gun, where he is actually in the jet fighter, or in this case where he, and I'm not spoiling this because you can actually see that in the trailer, where he rides a motorcycle off a cliff and then parachutes down, and you can actually, or you were able to see all of the behind the scenes footage of that stunt before the movie was actually in cinema. So I don't feel like that this is a spoiler in any shape or form. And yeah, let's get to Dead Reckoning. The movie is very good in my humble opinion. It's intense, it is entertaining to watch, and as mentioned in my previous episode of the Ismono Commute, I tend to get distracted sometimes. I'm gonna grab the phone and I kind of scroll through social media while watching a series, for instance. And Mission Impossible is one of the movie series where I actually am, bound to my seat. I don't have the urge to actually grab my phone. So it's very exciting, entertaining watch. The stunts are good and stuff like that. A synopsis of this, I try to think about without spoiling it too much. Obviously, the team of the name is so stupid, but they actually acknowledge it in a episode or in a movie before. The IMF, the Impossible Mission Force, it's such a stupid name, but they actually acknowledge this and they kind of make fun of it in one of the previous movies. They are again up against a villain. I will call it villain, so I won't spoil anything. They are up against a villain, like always, a antagonist, and yeah, they try to stop that villain. Sorry, I'm really struggling to create a synopsis or to tell you what's going on in this film without spoiling too much. But yeah, that's basically like all action movies. It's a protagonist against an antagonist, and I kind of realize now it's kind of hard to do a synopsis and to do a review without spoiling too much, and I think it is important to spoil. But let's talk about how I like this movie. This movie is great. As I said, the action scenes are very intense and obviously realistic, and therefore, in my humble opinion, entertaining. We have a couple of different people in the film, a couple of people who are in between, then are recruited to the good side, who are neutral. And I don't think that is a spoiler because this happens right more or less in the beginning. And then we obviously have antagonists, and they fight. Sorry, my Google Maps is telling me stuff. And they need to get from point A to point B, fight that person, and etc. The way I describe it now, obviously it sounds a little bit boring, but yeah, I don't want to spoil it, and I find the film very entertaining from the front to the end. One thing that wasn't that great, or if I had to criticize something in that movie, that Reckoning in particular, is in the middle, because there are so many parties involved who are racing to one specific thing, there is in the middle a section that is a little bit convoluted, in my humble opinion. It gets a little bit confusing what is going on and who is on which side, and what they are, not what what they're talking about, but the way they are talking about is, it's a little bit convoluted, and it's a little bit complicated to see who is now doing what and what their specific intentions are in that specific discussion. And that's why it gets a little bit out of control in terms of how you are able to follow along that conversation and the following storyline. As with many movies that have multiple parts, this is that Reckoning Part 1. There is going to be a second part. I don't know if they actually split it up to more parts, because if I'm not completely mistaken, that Reckoning was quite successful, and you know how movie studios are. If something is successful, they sometimes want to split it up even further and milk the cow as much as they can. From my personal experience, all of the Mission Impossible films have been great, so I wouldn't worry too much right now, but I would be happy if they just split up that Reckoning series in just 2 movies. Usually when studios or stories are being split up this way, you kind of are left with a very disappointing, or not disappointing, but it leaves you very high up in the air with a cliffhanger most of the time. That Reckoning Part 1 does the same, but it is still you leave the movie satisfied, let's say it that way. Again, there are some movie series where you are a little bit disappointed because there are some story plot lines that are, or too many lines that are in the cliffhanger section, let's say it that way. That's why you leave unsatisfied sometimes, but in this case I feel that the cliffhanger leaves a lot of questions open, that you really want to see the second movie, but still you are satisfied that this film, this part has ended in a, it's still a closing, a film in itself that has wrapped up multiple storylines in a way that is satisfying you. So yeah, I'm really sorry that I can't go into it more in detail because I really don't want to spoil this film for you. Bottom line, let's score it. I would say it's not my favorite movie this year. Actually, my favorite movie this year is probably Dungeons and Dragons. I watched that a few weeks ago. Let me know if you want to see a review about that. I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. I play it a lot every week, and that movie was great. So let me know if you want to see a review about that. And for me, that film is a 10 out of 10. So that Reconing is also great, but because it was convoluted in the middle, I would say 8.5 out of 10. Great movie. There were better Mission Impossible parts that I enjoyed much more. Therefore, yeah, but this is high up. Another question, would I consider this? I'm also a huge James Bond, Daniel Craig fan. The last films of the James Bond series with Daniel Craig were good, but not that good. So at the moment, I would say Mission Impossible is a little bit more exciting for me personally than James Bond. And yeah, that's it. Great movie, highly recommended. Starting this week, I believe, you were able to rent it. I rented on Amazon Prime. I didn't buy it because buying was still 17 euros and renting was 5, and therefore I rented it. Yeah, let me know what you think about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And do you prefer Mission Impossible or do you rather watch James Bond? Let me know in the comment section below. And like always, if you enjoyed this video, click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out my main channel, podcast, and Instagram at YouKnowTheBow. And yeah, see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.